How much Bitcoin do you need right now to retire in about 10 years? And how much would that cost? We're going to be going through that here today. We're going to probably have some pretty bullish price targets, but if you're watching this channel, you probably think Bitcoin's going to do quite well over the next 10 years because I talk about it a lot. And we are not going to get to the extreme bull category. There are some people, for example, someone that just came on Altcoin Daily's channel, that expect or say that Bitcoin could hit $15 to $100 million in the next 10 years, largely due to inflation spiking. Now, we're not going to be that bullish. We're going to give some realistic price targets out here today and talk about, depending on what kind of retirement you want, whether you're rolling on the beach in cash on some tropical island, or if you want to just be able to retire in 10, 15 years without having to invest more towards your retirement and everything in between. We're going to talk about how much Bitcoin you'd need at various price points. Now, I do want to thank Punk Panda. I'll put links to them underneath the video. They're today's show sponsor. And if you want to join the Patreon to know exactly when I'm buying and selling crypto and other stocks, you can check out the link underneath the video. Now, we are going to go through a couple different scenarios. If you've ever heard of FIRE or financial independence, retire early, that's great because we are going to be going through, how you can hit some of these different milestones. Now, if you don't know what that is, that's completely fine. It's basically the idea that you're able to retire when you hit a certain amount of money, depending on your expenses. Typically, we use this for S&P 500 indexes. So basically, we're saying that the safe withdrawal rate is 4% of your portfolio. Basically meaning that if you have $1 million in an S&P 500 index fund, you should be able to withdraw $40,000 a year based on historical data, and you should be safe to be able to withdraw 4% a year for the next 30 years. Only in about 3% of circumstances, or maybe it's 4 now, you would run out of money over 30 years. Now, we're going to make the assumption that we can use this 4% safe withdrawal rate. Obviously, if we have better returns or Bitcoin has better returns than the S&P 500, we could withdraw a lot more. For example, over the last 10 years, you could withdraw a lot more than 4% of your Bitcoin bag every year, and you'd still be able to continue to grow your overall net worth with Bitcoin because of the outsized returns. Now, there are a couple different ways that we can use this. So the traditional way of looking at financial independence, retiring early, is with this safe withdrawal rate and just looking at your expenses. Now, if you have normal expenses in the US, you could be looking at maybe $65,000 that you'd need a year. Some people need a lot more depending on your area. Some people, $200,000 wouldn't be super extravagant if you're in New York or somewhere very expensive. So we're going to assume that you're kind of in the middle. If you're looking at traditional FIRE, we're going to assume that you need $100,000 a year. You have $100,000 worth of annual expenses. And if this isn't making sense yet, it will make sense here in a second. But there are some ways that we can get to FIRE faster. You can do something called lean FIRE, which is basically not covering everything that you could ever want. So you're not going on lavish vacations. You're not spending a lot on cars, that kind of thing. Maybe you're eating out a little bit less. You're basically just covering your housing, your food, your basic food, any kind of medical expenses, basically the bare minimum that you need to live on. We're going to say that's $50,000 a year. So $4,000 a month, I think, could handle a lot of people's expenses that are, just the expenses that you have that you need to live on. Basically nothing, like I said, nothing that expensive, nothing that extravagant. And then if you want to get to FIRE even faster, and again, we'll put numbers to this, how much you need for Bitcoin, but we're going to assume that we could also do something called Coast FIRE, which is basically you're able to hit a certain dollar amount and then not have to put any more towards retirement for a number of years. So if, for example, maybe you have a couple $100,000 in an investment account by the time you're 30, then you realize by the time you're 60, that'll be enough to retire off of. We could do that with Bitcoin too. We're going to assume a 10% CAGR or 10% compounded annual growth rate after 10 years. So after 2033, we have enough Bitcoin to retire, and we're going to assume this 10% compounded annual growth rate for the next 20 years. And that means that we can go into traditional FIRE after that. So basically, after those 20 years, after we're done accumulating by 2033, we could go into traditional FIRE and have $100,000 worth of annual expenses. Again, this will make more sense here in a second, but this essentially allows you to get more growth and just not put more towards retirement. So maybe you can cut back on your hours or take a less stressful job in those 20 years, and then you'll hit traditional FIRE after that. And then what if you want to live it up a little bit more? What if you want to invest a little bit more here today, and then you want to be able to spend more down the road? Let's take a look at how much you need then. If you had fat FIRE, let's say you wanted to, again, spend $20,000 a month. You wanted nice cars, you want a Tesla, you want a really nice house, you want to take vacations. We're going to assume that you need $250,000 a year for annual expenses. And then the last thing that I want to look at is also the filthy rich FIRE. I made this one up myself. All these other terms are pretty commonplace in the FIRE community. Filthy rich FIRE is being able to retire with a ton of money, being able to bring in $1 million a year, basically, for anything you want. We could spend $80,000 a month. Some people out there do make a lot of money, so maybe they want to be able to spend a lot of money in retirement as well. So assuming all this, we need to know the price of Bitcoin. Now, it's impossible to see 10 years into the future, but I put some different price models here, and we're starting off at 100,000. I think that's pretty bearish, honestly, because we were just at 65,000 just over a year ago now. We were at 65,000 or 68,000. So that would just be a 50% increase from the top over the next 10 years. I think that is bearish, but we're going to include that price. We're going to include a $250,000 price target, about a 10x from here. We're going to assume a $500,000 price target, which is still less than it would still put Bitcoin at less than the market cap of gold. And that's assuming gold doesn't go up in price at all over the next 10 years. So I think that's a little bit bearish even too. I think we'll be above 500,000. I think $1 million is maybe pretty appropriate. That will probably be around the market cap of gold in 10 years. And then we put a $2 million price as well. Not extremely bullish, not bearish either. A little bit more on the bull side, I think, for most people. That would be a very nice return from here. I mean, we're talking about nearly a 100x. But keep in mind that we have done more than 100x over the last 6 or 7 years as well. Over the last couple cycles, we have been able to come from bottom to the top much more than where we would go here, from 23,000 to 2 million. So I've talked a lot. Let's get down to the numbers. If Bitcoin was going to hit 100,000 and we want to be filthy rich FIRE, right? We want to have so much money to spend in retirement. How much Bitcoin would we need? Keep in mind that we would only have a 4x. So we would only have a 4x from today's prices, and we want to be able to spend $1 million a year. We need 250 Bitcoin. It's a lot. And let me break down the numbers real quick, but this is the most that we need in any of these examples. You want to spend $1 million a year, right? You need 25 times that if we do the safe withdrawal rate of 4%. And then Bitcoin is only going to be $100,000. So again, you're going to need about $25 million worth of Bitcoin, spending at 4% a year, and Bitcoin's only going to do a 4x. So you're going to need a lot of Bitcoin from here. Now, what if Bitcoin's price goes up more? Because I think this is pretty bearish. Keep in mind, again, you're talking about spending a lot of money, and you're talking about Bitcoin not moving up that much in this example. Well, as we go down, we can see in the more extreme example, let's say $1 million. Bitcoin hits $1 million. We need $25 million, again, of Bitcoin. That means that we would need about 25 Bitcoin. So that's pretty expensive for a lot of people. There's some ways that we can bring this down, the amount that we need down, which we'll go through in a minute here. But let's say, we don't have that much money. I don't have this much money, right? I don't have 100 Bitcoin or anywhere close to that here today. So let's say we want fat FIRE, right? $250,000 a year. That's still a lot of money. That's still a lot of money to spend. If Bitcoin hits that $1 million mark, we need 6.25 Bitcoin. Okay, well, that's still a lot. It's better, but We're still going to need a lot of money if we want to spend $250,000 a year, a 4% withdrawal rate. Let's say traditional fire, because this is getting me a little bit depressed here, right? Traditional fire, we can still spend $100,000 a year, any kind of extra income that you make on the side or any other kind of investments, because I do think it's smart to diversify, right? Any kind of other investments would just be a cherry on top of the sundae there, or icing on top of the cake. You need, if Bitcoin hit $1 million, you need 2.5 Bitcoin here today. So still, you'd have to be a whole coiner, more than a whole coiner, more than 2 times a whole coiner. But you're talking about retiring in 10 years, right? That's pretty good. And if you start dollar cost averaging here today, a lot of people probably could hit 2.5 Bitcoin. Okay, what if we want lean fire? We just want to hit our expenses. And we'll show you how quickly all these change too. Like a couple of years ago, or even at the bottom of the bear market, it was much easier to hit these numbers than it is right now because price has gone up. Now, before we go any further, I want to thank Punk Panda for being today's show sponsor. Punk Panda is basically a free suite of encrypted apps that allow you to earn crypto with zero investment necessary. Right now, the only available app in the suite is the Panda app, which is similar to WhatsApp or Telegram. The major difference, according to the company, is that unlike all other communication apps, their combos are secure and not even the company has access to them. They also don't sell their data or run any in-app ads. And of course, none of the other apps pay them for using and sharing them. Their website has a 2-minute explainer video about this, and you can download the app from there. It is invite only though, so you will need an invite code. I'll leave mine in the description box below so you can check it out. For those of you who are interested in investing in the project itself, you can buy PPM directly from punkpandafarm.com and even swap or purchase other tokens without all the extra fees charged by exchanges. But even if you're not looking to buy any of the tokens, you can always try out the app to get some of the free tokens. Be on the lookout for some of the other apps from Punk Panda that will be coming out soon, including Panda Academy, where you get to educate yourself about crypto, Panda Meet, Panda Post, Panda Vault, Panda Play, Panda Profit, and Panda Legends, which is an NFT play-to-earn fighting game. Check out the link underneath the video, again, to punkpanda.io, and you can download the app using my code. Now, of course, like always, I'm not telling you to buy or sell any cryptocurrency. You have to make your own decisions. I just think it's important, if you can, to try out new things and to make sure you keep an eye on smaller projects in a bear market. If they get through these times, typically they do pretty well in a bull market if they actually have a growing user base. So keep your eye on this project. So lean fire, if you wanted $50,000, you basically wanted to just work to be able to take vacations, or maybe your other investments cover this. Well, if Bitcoin only 4x's, well, you'd still need 12.5 Bitcoin because, again, Bitcoin in this example is not going up very much. But as we go down the line, you see if we had $1 million Bitcoin, you need 1.25 Bitcoin here today. Or actually in 10 years, you need 1.25 Bitcoin. So we're starting to get to a level that's really realistic for a lot of people. And we'll go through how much this will cost. But, at Bitcoin's price today, let's just say it's 20,000, just to make the math easy. That means we'd only have to spend about $25,000 here today to be able to retire in 10 years and cover all our expenses. That's really good. Again, this is with a 4% withdrawal rate, so that's pretty safe in a lot of people's minds. Then if we want to do coasting fire, it would cost even less than this. Basically, if Bitcoin goes up to $1 million, you only need 0.37 Bitcoin. Now, again, this assumes that we're going to continue to compound at 10% for 20 years, basically meaning you need 1/6 what you need over here, almost 1/7 of what you need over here, because again, we're going to compound and compound. After we're 10 years into the future, we're still not going to touch our Bitcoin, and it's still going to go up in value. Then if Bitcoin hits 2 million, you only need 0.2 Bitcoin. So again, this is taking into account a lot of assumptions, but for some people, these are still really large numbers. So we're going to show how that can actually be brought down, how you could get there faster, and how it actually is becoming more and more difficult as Bitcoin's price goes up, because The fact is, this was a lot easier just a couple months ago. It was even a lot easier at the bottom of the 2018 bear market to be able to hit these numbers. And we'll show you how much it cost to hit some of these numbers here in a second. So as I said, this is still very difficult for a lot of people to hit, right? There are a lot of numbers, especially over in this range, that would be difficult to be able to dollar cost average into to get up to, 10 Bitcoin, 12 Bitcoin by 2033. Over the next 10 years, this is a difficult goal to hit. Now, of course, that means that you either just have to invest more or you'll just get less out of it. That's how the world works, right? If you're going to invest, you have to invest a lot. Even if Bitcoin's price goes up 10x, right? You still need to invest a lot to be able to retire. Now, we can massage the numbers a little bit. What if we want to be a little bit less safe with our 4% withdrawal rate? What if we wanted a 5% withdrawal rate? Because, there are some people that would think that we could still withdraw because Bitcoin's price will go up enough. We could still withdraw 5% instead of 4%. And that does make a pretty big difference. We won't spend too much time here, but instead of 250 Bitcoin for Filthy Rich Fire, we need 200. Instead of traditional fire, if Bitcoin hits a million of needing 2.5, you'd only need 2. So it does cut down the amount of Bitcoin you need by 25% or 20% from here. So that would make a huge difference. Now, how much would this actually cost right now? Because, depending on when you're looking and which one you're looking at, there's a lot of math that you have to do to determine how much Bitcoin you'd actually, or how much money you need to spend on the Bitcoin. Well, for 250 Bitcoin here today, you need $5.7 million. It's a lot of money. And it makes sense, right? If Bitcoin's at 23,000, it's basically going to 4x to 100,000 in this example, right? And you need $25 million for the safe withdrawal rate. That would make sense that it would be pretty substantial. You need almost $6 million for that. Now, what if the Bitcoin, and this is assuming $23,000 today, just to be clear, we could, depending on when you're watching this, we could be up from here, we could be down from here. But as time goes on, it becomes harder and harder to buy this Bitcoin, right? If we look just back a few years, actually, if we just look back a few months, right? At the bottom of the bear market just a few months ago, Bitcoin's price was $15,500. So instead of needing $85,000 now or $86,000 for coasting fire, if we hit a $100,000 Bitcoin, you only needed $58,000 worth of Bitcoin. So as Bitcoin's price moves up and down, it really changes how much Bitcoin you need, or not how much Bitcoin you need, but how much you need to spend on the Bitcoin that you need to be able to retire. So if you can get towards the bottom of the bear, you need a lot less money to buy this financial freedom for yourself. We can even go down the line. If we go back down to the bottom of the 2018 bear market, this is a little bit of a depressing chart to look at, how much cheaper it would have been, but it does give you some reason to possibly buy now if you think Bitcoin's going to go up in the future, right? If, let's say you wanted traditional fire, Bitcoin's price at the bottom was $3,200. $3,200 at the bottom of the 2018 bear market, maybe even a couple dollars below that, but that's what I saw on the chart. If Bitcoin hits $1 million, that would be basically a 330x from the bottom of the 2018 bear market. 330x. So that means, again, if Bitcoin hits $1 million, you would only need to spend about $8,000 on Bitcoin, because that would have given you about 2.5 Bitcoin around that time, and you would be able to retire. If you wanted $100,000 a year by 2033 and Bitcoin, or by any year, and Bitcoin hits $1 million, that's crazy. If you wanted to be filthy rich fire, spending $1 million a year, assuming you got this $1 million Bitcoin after buying at 3,200, you have had to spend about $80,000. So you could spend 15 times more every single year than you invested in Bitcoin around this time. So, there are some people that did this, that spent way more than that, and that got tons of money, millions and tens of millions of dollars. And we could also go through this whole example with the 5% safe withdrawal rate, basically showing you would need to spend or invest a lot less if you're going to do this 5% withdrawal rate, even at today's prices, right? You would need, let's say you want to do traditional fire and you think Bitcoin's going to hit $1 million in the next 10 years, you'd only need to invest $46,000 versus $57,500. And we can go down the line here as well. If you bought at the bottom of the bear market just a couple months ago, you would have only needed to spend about 31,000 instead of 39,000 to get that, if Bitcoin was going to hit that $1 million mark. And then last one we'll go through here. If you're able to buy around $3,200 and you were going to do a 5% withdrawal rate, and you were trying to hit traditional fire, just hit $100,000 a year, you would have only had to spend $6,400. Right? It's crazy. So I'm not trying to spread hopium. I'm just showing the model. Basically, depending on what Bitcoin's price hits, how much would you need to retire? Depending on what kind of lifestyle you want to live. Now, if you want me to do more videos like this, I love making videos like this. It's super fun for me just to make spreadsheets and break down numbers. Look out into the future instead of looking at the day-to-day so much. Look at how much you really need to accumulate. Now, just like with a lot of other investments, right? You don't want to just gear your investments to hitting random numbers from someone on the internet, right? If you're investing everything into Bitcoin, that might not be the best idea for you in terms of diversification, in terms of your own sanity. So I would still suggest not just trying to, set some arbitrary goal of hitting 5 Bitcoin or something by 2033. Look at how much money you make. Look at how much you want to allocate towards Bitcoin, how much risk you're willing to take, and then invest an appropriate amount. I think, if you're investing in Bitcoin in 10 years, you'll probably be very happy. And if you're watching this video in 10 years, comment down below. Was I close to any of these numbers? Where did we actually end up? I'd love to look back at this and take a look at how my tone is towards certain numbers, like the fact that I think Bitcoin could definitely hit $1 million. And I'm talking about the peak, to be clear. How right on was I with my predictions? Not really predicting too much in this video because, there's such a wide range of numbers, but I have made it pretty clear that I think $100,000 is pretty bearish. I still think $250,000 is pretty bearish for 10 years from now. I think 1 million is a lot closer, but let me know if I was close in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Again, thank you to Punk Panda for sponsoring this video. Also, check out the link to Patreon, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.